Thanks so much, Mac Miller. Keep on rocking in the free world, and do-do-do-do.
Doot.
Malcolm James McCormick, more commonly known as Mac Miller, is one of the most loved rappers of the 2010s, and he still has a very diehard and loyal fan base to this day, despite tragically passing away in 2018 at a young age. And while I myself have listened to some of Mac Miller's most popular and known songs, I want to get the full Mac Miller experience and listen to every single Mac Miller album, and that is what we're going to be doing today, folks. I first listened to his 2010 album K.I.D.S. Now, I don't know if this is a mixtape or an album, but I'm gonna listen to it just because a lot of his most popular songs come from it, and it's a good ground to start on. Some of my favorite tracks from this have to be Knock Knock, Nikes on My Feet, Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza, and Senior Skip Day, and also Traffic in the Sky, which for some reason isn't on streaming services. Mac made this mixtape when he was 18, so it kind of just focuses on his teenage years and his childhood years. I mean, it's called Kids for a reason. I think it does hold up well, even compared to his later albums that focus on a lot more deep topics. Overall, this album was very fun, and you can kind of throw it on in any type of scenario. And Mac, he only wrote this when he was 18, so that's pretty impressive. In 2011, we would see his first studio album, Blue Side Park. Blue Side Park, from what I can take away from it, I can see why a lot of people consider this his weakest album. It's like he's still trying to do the frat rap sort of style that he's known for at that time, but he's not fully committing to it, so it's not really that cohesive as an overall album. But there were some highlights, such as Missed Calls, Smile Back, and Party on Fifth Ave. But now we have 2012's Macadelic.
Hey, cost money, but this love free. Turn up to reality, double couple lanes, standing on my balcony.
Macadelic is a pretty enjoyable listen because I feel like he really starts to take a leap artistically, and he pushes a little more boundaries here, and this is kind of a glimpse of later Mac Miller. Still some of the stuff you would expect from Mac at the time, but at the same time he's also diving into a little more deeper grounds and pushing the boundaries a little bit more. This album also has a lot of big features too, like some pretty big titans of the rap industry: Lil Wayne, Kendrick Lamar, some of the big boys. Some of my favorite tracks on here: The Question, Thoughts from a Balcony, Fight the Feeling, and Desperado. The next year, in 2013, we would have Watching Movies with the Sound Off.
I never thought that it would feel this way. You never taught me how to heal the pain. I wish you caught me on a different day.
Watching Movies with the Sound Off, I feel like, is where Mac really went from frat rap to psychedelic. I mean, it is a very mellow album. There's not as many standout tracks with this one, but I feel like the vibe it puts you in is very cool if you listen to it like start to finish. Avian, I'm Not Real, and Objects in the Mirror are probably some of my favorite tracks from the album, though. I don't know how much replay ability this album has, but it was very enjoyable, though, just from like start to finish. But now let's focus on his 2015 album, Good A.M.
Have you ever had a hurt? Just for something to do. Can you draw a perfect circle? How the lies cover the truth. You got options. What do you do?
Good A.M. All right, this is a great mix of the upbeat bangers and also the more like psychedelic and kind of depressing songs that are starting to come with Mac Miller. Some of the highlights: Brand Name, Ascension, 100 Grandkids, and Perfect Circle, Godspeed, which nearly drove my 6'5", 245 pounds of man to tears. If you're a Mac Miller fan, I would recommend this album. Has everything you could ask for. Next, in 2016, we have The Divine Feminine. The Divine Feminine, I feel like the theming here is very interesting and I enjoy it. Compared to Mac's other albums, it's probably not my favorite so far, but there are still a lot of highlights. My favorite tracks on this album, probably Soulmate, God is Fair, and Congratulations. The piano on that track is iconic. I mean, I felt like I was floating. Next up, we have his 2018 album, Swimming.
I don't need to lie no more. Nowadays, all I do is shine, take a breath and ease my mind.
Swimming. Now, I really enjoyed Swimming. I feel like it's like a genre blending album that was just very enjoyable from start to finish. I mean, there are like no skips here, and this might be Mac's most like creative album so far on this. Highlights: Come Back to Earth, Small Worlds, 2009, just to name a few. I feel like this was Mac Miller's most creative album at that time. While it's the most creative, I feel like it's the most consistent and well-rounded so far. Next up, we have 2020's Circles. Circles was Mac Miller's first posthumous album, and fans at that time were still grieving because this man was taken away from us at the peak of his artistic ability, and I think the Mac Miller estate did a good job of releasing this album in a non-cash grabby way, just to show off his creativity. This was a great album. It feels like kind of a continuation of Swimming. I feel like some of my favorite tracks here, probably Good News, That's on Me, and Blue World. In the same realm as Swimming, definitely up there with some of my favorite when it comes to Mac Miller albums. Next up, we have his 2021 album, Faces.
Can you tell me how you feel? Can you tell me how I feel?
Faces. What's interesting about this album to me is that it has a very upbeat sound to it, but at the same time has a very dark subject matter. It has a jazz rap sort of feel while he's talking about probably the darkest period of his life. Inside, Outside, Diablo, Polo Jeans, just to name a few. Those are some of my favorite tracks from this album. Next, we have his 2025 album, Balloonism.
Say, it ain't about money. I can show you the world, girl.
Balloonism focuses on very similar themes that we're seen in like Swimming and Faces, and I feel like this album does it in a very polished and great way. It has more of a jazz vibe, which I do enjoy. Here are some of my favorite tracks from the album: $5 Pony Rides, Funny Papers, Excelsior, and Rick's Piano.
I never thought that it would feel this way. You never taught me how to heal the pain.
Overall, Mac Miller's great development as an artist in such a tragically brief time is remarkable. My personal favorite Mac Miller album, probably Swimming, then maybe Faces, then Balloonism after that. That's my personal opinion. Comment down below. What's your favorite Mac Miller album? Are you a fan of Mac Miller? Comment down below. What video do you want to see next? Thanks for tuning in. Love you. Adios.